Hello and welcome to another Patreon show. On this one, we are very much going to be random today, I've decided. So it's not going to be topical. It's not going to be anything about that's in the news. It's not going to be anything that's in the sport news. It's not going to be anything about football. I just thought today we'd talk on a very open-ended topic of work. Just anything and everything about work, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So my to kick this off, the thought that was in my head to kick this off, mate, was I have always struggled with how seriously some people take work. And now I don't know if that'll get people's backs up or not, but like I've been in meetings in workplaces and I see people that, I know who they are and like I've drank with them or whatever, and I've seen what they're like when they're not in a workplace. And so I struggle to know why they're a totally different person in there and why they would use like words they wouldn't use if they weren't in work. And do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get why it transforms some people totally as a person and they feel they have to act in certain ways, or even that like certain behavior is justified because you're in a workplace and it wouldn't be elsewhere. It's a bit like, like we were chatting the other day where we about sort of, online v offline, and someone sent us a quite funny
That was funny that,
cartoon,
yeah.
didn't they? Yeah, it was like it was Out of Private Eye. I think it was the Grim Sleeper.
Yeah.
We've given him a shout out before, but so the cartoon that was in Private Eye was basically like, there's this fella going up to someone in the street and calling them a cunt and said, sorry, just taking a bit of a break from Twitter and thought I'd try it out in real life, which is what we were saying, like, the other week, that you obviously wouldn't do that. And yet on Twitter, free reign, just call complete strangers what you want. But I think it can be a bit like that in work. Like people act in ways and say things and like, like you're just like, well, you wouldn't do this if we weren't in here and I wasn't, like being paid by this organization. So why, when we are in here, do you do it? Do you know what I mean? Is it just, is it
100%. You
just
just
me?
reminded me of a story when I used to work for huge law firms, then I left to set up my own law firms. So it'd be interesting talking about all that side of stuff as well. Like, but I've got this vivid memory. I employed a lad who used to work with me, so I wanted to expand the law firm to different types of law. So I hired a lad who used to work for me work with me in one of the big firms. And I remember that we were going out then, Joe, doing networking and coffees and stuff, like meeting people. And the boss of his team in the business we used to work in was renowned in our office for being an absolute twat. Like everyone hated him. And we met this like potential client who was in the property world and all that. And I nearly named him then, like the partner. But he we're chatting and he went, "Oh, so you used to work?" He went to the lad I'd hired because he was like, "Oh, he's come over from this law firm, blah blah." And he went, "Oh, so you would have worked with such a body in that team?" And my mate hated him. And he went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And the fella went, "Oh, what a fella he is! What a fella he is! Isn't he like honestly, this fella couldn't have been more effusive in his praise of this boss. Like he was like, he's the one of the funniest fellas I've ever met. Such good company, so generous." And I could feel like I was giggling to myself inside because I could feel my mate like boiling up because Joe was
Yeah.
so fucking far removed from who he'd experienced. And we were chatting about it afterwards, saying, "That's mad, isn't it?" Because that fella's clearly not putting it on. Like the version of that lad he knows, that man he knows, is brilliant. Like not only it's not just he's all right, like he's an unbelievable fella. And the version we get to see is this horrible bastard. And we were chatting about it because it was interesting. It's like, God, is this what this place does to you? And it was one of the things I think that planted the seed in me of like, I want to get out. Like I want to get out and do my own thing. Because if that's what being in this business does, and I could see it already, like when I was a trainee solicitor, it was like I was dead good fun. Everything was free. I worked hard and I went out drinking and stuff, but didn't have that many responsibilities. So I was a laugh. I was just joking about it the other day with a mate. We were reminiscing, like from back in the day. I used to do wind-ups in the office and everything, and like send out like wind-up emails to the whole office, including like the senior partners and the people who ran the place and everything. And I'd have people coming into my office going, "It's fucking wild, that, mate. What? You can't, you can't do that." And I was like, "It's funny though, isn't it?" But it didn't cross my mind. But then when I qualified as a solicitor, you start getting more responsibilities. Then you start getting, more pressure. You've got to deliver more. You've got to hit targets. And I could see how I started to change slightly. And then when I ran my own business, completely different again, because I was the boss then. So it's like, in my head, you can't be the boss and doing email wind-ups on people in the office and like practical jokes. Do you know what I mean? So it's weird because I can see how it's like just a slippery slope where you start off as you, and then you just slowly turn into these other characters over time because I think it's partly like you think that's what's expected of you. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, you get that in football, don't you? When you've heard the story told a million times when players, transition from being a player to a coach or even to a manager, and then all of a sudden, like their relationship with the lads, if you like, is suddenly very different. I heard an interview the other day on the radio actually, and it was like it was a fella who'd been the manager, but had also been like the assistant manager and the coach, and he was just saying like the dynamics are all totally different. Like, like he said, like, like if you're the manager and you drop someone, 9 times out of 10, they have a cob on with you. He said, but if you're the assistant manager or the coach, they're still mates with you because they know that you didn't ultimately make the decision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And things like that. So I understand like dynamics, but
there's an Alan Hansen story about it, isn't there? Have you ever heard that
I think
story?
so, yeah.
When he got asked about why he didn't become manager, and there was literally a day where it might have been when Kenny left, and
didn't he blag that he was going to be the manager or something? And
just to see how he
funny with him.
Yeah,
yeah.
And he said like as well, like he said I would have like I think he was doing it in defense of Souness, of like how hard it is, because he was like, he was trying to do things that era wasn't ready for, and he went and I'd have done them. Joe, the first thing I said to the lads was like, no more chippy dinners after the game, and they were all like, oh fuck off, Al. No fucking chance. And he went straight away. I was like, I'd never do this then.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Like, I get that. I think that's a thing, isn't it? But my thing is more like just sort of like if I'm thinking about examples in like my own career, I've seen some absolutely bizarre things when I look back, and like I don't understand. Like, I mean, I don't like it in general, but it happens in workplaces. I think in particular, I don't like brown nose and like I don't get it. I don't get how I don't get how you square that in your own head, basically. And like a place I worked, it was very, let's just say it was very hierarchical, you know what I mean? And you had all these grand titles and all that kind of stuff. And again, that stuff's never bothered me. If you've got a grand title, good for you, but like you're still just a person, do you know what I mean? And that's sort of my stance on it, if you like. So, I just work on the basis that, if you're all right, you're all right. And we go from there sort of thing. And like there was a fella I worked with who had a very grand title. He was near the top of the organisation. And I just thought he was an absolute bell. Like he just sort of like strode round like he fucking owned the place, walk into thing. And like he made it, he got a bit of a cob on with me when I first started there because like I hadn't like sort of led on to him and I didn't even know who he was. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like my first week and I was walking along the corridor and him and others were there who were all powerful people in this organization. And I just walked past because I didn't know them and I hadn't been introduced to them. And I didn't think I was just going to, didn't think it was, a big organization, like not like, a little office with like 10 people. It was like huge organization, loads of people work for them. So you're not just going to, in my head, you're not going to just stop and go, "Hi, I'm Gareth, who are you?" type of thing. And like he had a little gripe saying, "Oh, well, that new lad, he didn't even let on, like ignored us and all this." And it was like, just pasture in a corridor, like, what's going on with your ego there straight away? Like, and first impressions were right about him and like didn't get on with him and just thought he was a blade. But there was other people in the organization who so badly sucked up to him. It was unbelievable. And he got a promotion once. And various people who worked with him like kitted out his office with like, you know, all this stuff saying he was like the king. And like I just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like a sitcom. Do you know what I mean? And like people running up and down corridors to like get drinks for him, and you know, like just mollycoddle him, and you know, like, oh listen, it was like, this is so cringeworthy, and like this is adults. Again, like in what other setting would you do that? And like, and he's there lapping it up, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember like sort of, you know, as time went on, like, you know, clashed with him a couple of times on various things. But I remember he said to me once, you know, me and you are very similar. And I went, we're not. And he goes, well, we are, you know, we're both local lads and all that. And I said, and yeah, that's where the similarities end. Because I just didn't like the way he spoke to people, the way he treated people. He would literally walk into a room in that workplace with his chest puffed out. And, you know, he would do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, puff his chest out and sort of like announce things. And like, I'm trying to think of ways that I can tell some of these stories without it being too obvious where I'm talking about. Like, but I remember like there was a bit of an incident where another senior manager had been in a bit of an embarrassing spot, shall we say, regarding stuff that was found on a laptop. And it ended up in the press, like. And at the time, I'd had an operation on me vocal cords. I had polyps on me vocal cords, and they had to be removed. And then, like, you know, they were tested to see if they were cancerous and all that, and, you know, thankfully not. But when I was recovering from that, guess what? I wasn't allowed to speak, which was mad. And so I went into work, but I had to write things on pads and that. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I just like they literally said you've got to rest your vocal cords for it to recover, type of thing. So, fair enough. And all this was going off at this time, and he come into the room, the puff chest out and all that, closed the doors, and just basically said like, you know, someone somewhere in this organization's like leaked this story, you know, got it into the press and all that, and it's embarrassing for the organization. And then like just said in front of everyone, like, he basically said, we all know who's got a background in newspapers, of course, and like stared at me. And I was just like, nah.
He did this when you couldn't speak.
Yeah. I just shook my
Drafty.
finger. I just shook my finger at him. Sort of went like, nah. And at a future point, I just said to him, like, you were out of order there. And he goes, well, you know, I think it was a fair enough assumption. I said, but it was an assumption and it's not correct. And it wasn't. I didn't go leaking it to the press. I couldn't speak. But again, it's just sort of like, you know, why did he again think that that's acceptable behavior? Like, you know, and like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't get why people transform like that. You know, like there's another one, completely different workplace where I was made up to get the job, and it was like quite a big step up from where I'd been previously and stuff like that. Much more money and stuff like that. And I was made up, do you know what I mean? And got in there, and like, you know, after a while, settled and felt good in there, felt that I was, you know, pulling my weight, etc. And they said to me when I started there, right, this is your wage. And after you've completed, I think it was like 2 years with the organization, you'll automatically get this much. Sound. So that was obviously always in my head, like, do you know what I mean? And so we got to the 2 years, and I was like, okay, I want that pay rise now. And this fella who was like the manager, director, whatever he was, it was him who'd said this in like a welcome interview type thing. So, you know, gave it all the, we treat our staff well, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's standard that after 2 years you'll get blah, blah, blah. And he lied to my face and just said, like, I didn't say that. And I was like, well, where would I have got it from? Do you know what I mean? And he's like, well, prove I said it. And I was like, okay, so I've been naive and green or whatever by not asking for a bit of paper saying it. I said, but you know you said it. I know you said it. And you're sitting there now lying to me face. And I said, and do you expect me to stay here? And he goes, well, you do what you want. And I said, well, I will do, won't I? But like, you know, I don't really want to knock round in any form of life with someone like you. And so I just started applying for jobs immediately and got off. And they were like, when I put me, you know, when I put in my notice and said I was getting off when I'd found something else, like, why are you getting off? So why do you think? You lied to me. You lied to me face. And they're like, well, it might be something we can do and all that. And I said, no, in a bit. And I just, again, like even telling you the story now, I still don't get it. How can you just sit? Like, why would you be hard? Why wouldn't you just go, yeah, I did say it, but you know what? Like the company's not doing that well, or whatever. Like there's different ways to spin it, isn't there? And perhaps I would have swallowed some of the spin if you wanted to do that, but to just go, I didn't say it. It's like, well, we both know you did. So
yeah, do you know what's mad when we have these conversations? Though I was thinking about this the other day when you sent me a ChatGPT thing, and because I've always got like two hats on whenever we have these conversations, and it happens to me all the time in real life now, because I've done so much like in the past few years studying humans and like how we're set up and why we do things and like why we behave in certain ways. I've usually got an answer. Do you know what I mean? When someone goes to me, like I'll find myself going sometimes, like just in my private life, don't understand why they did that, and then my brain goes, yes, you do. You do understand why they did it. It's because of this, this, and this. And you're like, yeah, I do actually, yeah. But like, you know, the old like angry part of me is just like fucking bastards. And it's like, yeah, but the rational brain in me goes, yeah, you do understand now. I do. I like, but what I've realized is, you know, the way ChatGPT, I was thinking this, I think we've said this on a show in the past, when ChatGPT, when you think about, when we've talked about if our artificial intelligence becomes sentient and becomes real and starts like taking over humanity, they'd just be knobheads. Like, you know, it's just constantly like when you go to it, go ahead, do a joke about this. And it's like, I can't do a joke about that because it's not very nice to do jokes about people. And I was like, I was laughing to myself thinking, I've got to be careful I don't turn into ChatGPT. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm constantly like, yes, well, humans are just very flawed individuals all the time. We need to be conscious of that whenever we're talking about them, and we shouldn't criticize because it's like people are sometimes not.
That your AI. Have you seen that?
Oh no, where was that?
Yeah, so we were talking about mad comments we get, weren't we, on the other show the other week? Yeah, on one of the, I can't remember where it was. No, I think it might have been TikTok. Someone said like, is he AI him? Like, is he?
I love like, that. I love that.
One for the kids. This, like, I don't know if even you remember this because I only just about remember. Do you remember Max Headroom?
No.
So I've got So it'll be an age difference thing. It was like on Channel 4, and it was like a robot computer fellow, and his head jerked round everywhere when he spoke. Like it'll be inevitably, I'm sure it's on YouTube, but like. Yeah, so it'd be like me doing a podcast with Max Headroom. But
I love that. We were saying the other day where we have to meet after the long nose comment that our mate Martin's jumped on as well now. Like we're gonna start everything with, this is neither an insult nor a compliment, but it's that fella AI. I'm gonna start wearing a t-shirt that got that on. This is neither an insult nor a compliment. But are you a prick?
I wish I could remember what it was. It was a bit like that. A bit like, you know, it was like I seen this thing. I don't even know who told me, and I can't remember what it is, which is a bit shit. But like, if anyone has seen what I'm talking about, tell me, because I loved it. Someone told me once about like a comment that sort of vaguely makes sense, but doesn't make sense, that you can reply to anything on social media with, basically. And like it just confuses people, you know, like people who are being knobheads, you just reply with this thing and they're going, what's he on about there? Yeah. So but I can't remember what it was, which is really annoying. So that's a bit of a shit story.
We'll find that. But back on the point. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. It's like the two hats. So like with one hat on, I'm like, yeah, no, I can tell you why people do shit like that. With me, like day-to-day life hat on, I'm like, yeah, you best just fucking people like that off, to be honest. Like, do you know,
Yeah.
in real life, how do you deal with this in real? Because it's all well and good me being able to say, I can explain why they do that. Like, they're doing all this stuff subconsciously, psychologically, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't change that they're doing it. Like, someone said to me once when I was coaching someone in this world, and they said to me, so do you just like everybody now? I was like, nah, are you fucking messing? And anyone listening to this will be like, nah, he doesn't. And I was like, no, it doesn't mean you like everyone. It just means you understand why they
Yeah.
behave, why the way they behave. It doesn't mean you like what they do. So I remember when again, going back to being in the law firm, and I think this is one of the things you struggle with, like generally. And I think it's why I sort of try and talk to you and gently encourage you to do your own thing. Because I think you're just better off doing your own thing.
Probably.
Like me in many ways. Like I'm in some ways I'm a boss employee. Like, I'm hardworking and I'm diligent and I get shit done. But I'd be a fucking pain in the arse for the wrong, and I was for the wrong bosses, because all I'm doing, like you, is constantly fucking challenging them and constantly going like, and in my head back then, I was like, but I'm great. I'm a great employee. But when I turned around, once I started employing people, and I've seen this like renting out houses as well, and I had a tenant say to me once, I'm the perfect tenant. And I was like, you are the fucking worst tenant in the world. All you do is give me fucking grief for nothing. Like, and that like it's a really interesting dynamic in it all, because I got to a place with the law firm where I was like, there's a game, like this is just a
Yeah.
big game, right?
Yeah.
And I used to be inside the game, constantly trying to change it, going like, well, that's not fair, and that behavior out of order, and you're a prick, and why do you do that? And why aren't like salaries just open? That was one of my big ones. Why can't
Yeah.
you just let everyone's salary be open? Because if you can justify everybody's salary, you should be able to say to me, he gets paid £5 grand a year more than you because of this, this, and this. And if you do this, this, and this, you can get paid that £5 grand. And she gets paid 20 grand more than you because of this, this, and it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas it was all
100%.
hush hush. And even
Yeah.
sometimes I'd negotiate a pay rise and they'd go to me, well, we'll give it to you, but you can't tell anyone. And I'd be like, why? And they'd be like, because such a body, it'll upset such a body. And I'd go, well, just tell such a body, this is why I got the pay rise and they didn't. Like, that's the way it should work. And after a while, what I realized was, I'm just fighting a machine for no reason. Why am
Yeah.
I
That's
trying
the
to
thing.
change their business? And
Yeah.
like a couple of the senior partners didn't have the balls to say that to me, but in those clear terms. But they were sort of hinting that at me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why are you trying to rock the boat? Just leave the fucking boat. And if you don't want to play the game, fuck off. And I
Yeah.
just got to the point where I was like, yeah, I'll just play my own game then.
The politic of it is just draining, isn't it? And like I get it. Like I get, I've read a lot of the same books as you, and probably listened to a lot of the same podcasts as you. And I wouldn't say I'm in the same place as you. Like I'm still getting a cob on with people. Like, but it's that thing, isn't it, of just sort of being able to go, none of this really matters. In the grand scheme, this like what you're being a bellend.
Well,
So
and the most important thing
I'll
is,
just pick up my money and go home. Do you know
yeah,
what I
well,
mean?
the most important thing is it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things I learned. Like the way people behave, we always think it's about us. Like if you're on the receiving end of someone's behavior, it's like, oh, it's about me. And you're like, it's not, it's about them. Because if they were sound, if they were just calm inside, they wouldn't be getting pissed off and they wouldn't be lying and they wouldn't, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. No,
once you've
100%.
sorted your own head out inside, it's easy to admit you made a mistake. And I often have people saying, I did that extra mental health episode a couple of weeks ago just because I wanted to expand on a couple of things. And people have said this to me over the years, God, it must be really hard to talk about that stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not. Dead easy now because it's just the truth. So
Yeah.
I'm just comfortable with it. Like I'm comfortable with who I am, and like that's just the way it is. So, yeah. And if you don't like it, that's okay too. That's why it makes it easy for me to be like, oh, you don't like me nose. That's okay. Like that. Do you know what? The fact you don't
Yeah.
like my nose is not about me. It's about you. And I'm all right with that. I'm all right with my nose. It's
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm delivering all the stories here, and they're all conflicts. But I remembered another one where again, like I don't know, even when I reflect on it now, based on what you just said, I don't think in the same scenario I'd just go, oh well, that's okay, that's hard. I had a fella in the workplace get like really close up to me, like, and like fingers going and all this, and was going, just grow some fucking balls regarding a work-based issue. And I just thought, I did do this, take a step back, think about what's just been said, but my response wasn't, just let it go and walk away. I said to him, bit similar to what we've just been talking about again, I said to him, do you think if we weren't on these premises and if we weren't in work, you could do what you've just done? And he went, what?
Nice, that's a
And
nice
so,
response, that though.
and he went, and he carried on sort of raging at me, and I just said to him, I'll say it again. And he went, what is it you said? And I said, come to a different place, have a conversation with me where it's not work, speak to me like that. And he said in the end, are you threatening me? I said, no, where's the threat? I said, I'm just asking you, do you think prodding your finger at me, shouting in my face is acceptable? And like, I can't remember what he said to that. It petered out, but I was fuming with him. Like, do you know what I mean?
But this is funny, right? The irony of that conversation is when you're, this is me being a bit ChatGPT, but it's interesting, I think. When you're doing that, you're changing your behavior because you're in work.
I know, that's true.
You're just doing it at the other end of the scale. So he's become more aggressive because he's in a work environment and thinks he can get away with it. And you've become less aggressive because you're in a work environment.
Yeah, true.
When actually, if you were just being your true self, you'd have just knocked them out.
Yeah.
And you did. And everyone would have gone, you can't do that in work. And you'd have gone, well, you can't put your finger in my face in work.
I know.
So, and that's the mad thing about this. We all do this stuff, and we just don't know when we're doing it. Really, it's mad. But
what I think
I'm with you. Like I'm trying to think as you're talking. I have got so many stories. I mean, I left the work environment when you said we're going to talk about this. I was going, fucking hell, I could talk about this stuff all day. I left the work environment when I was 29. That's how much I disliked it. Do you know what I mean? I'd spent I'd studied to be a corporate lawyer. It took fucking ages to get into those positions. I've always hated it when people throw at me online stuff. Well, it was easy for you. Do you know what I talk about change your life and all that? People go, it was easy for you. And I'm like, what, you think it's easy to just walk away from a 45 grand a year job when you're 29, when you've spent like your whole life studying to be there, to risk setting up your own business that might just fucking fail? You think that's easy? Jesus Christ, it's not. But that's how much I fucking hated that world. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, I can't do this, and I'm not. And every now and then, my brain will do the whole like, should you go back and get a job and have a more stable life and all that, and just not even for the money, more for the environment, to be around more people. That's something I've struggled with a bit since leaving. Like, I liked being around people and having the interactions and all that.
Yeah.
As an employee, not as a boss. And that's something you miss when you work for yourself and you do your own thing. But my ultimate conclusion is, no, I can't go back in and work for someone else, because the number of times someone would go to me, do this, and I'd be like, why? And they'd be like, because I'm your boss and I'm telling you to. And I'd be like, yeah, but it doesn't make any sense to do it like that. And they'd be like, yeah, but that's not the point. And you're like, I'd be a little, honestly, just fucking questioning everything, and it doesn't go down well most of the time.
No, you're right. I can remember someone saying to me once, like it was a marketing document or whatever. It was something that was going to a printers anyway, and they sort of said, "Oh, came in, found me in the office and said, oh, you're good at like sort of proofreading and stuff like that, blah blah blah." I went, we have a look at that. So like I highlighted all the mistakes in it, like wrote down, how I would reword all these paragraphs, loads of stuff, took it back, and they said, your problem is that you're a perfectionist. And I was like, hang on. So you've asked me to proofread it. You've asked whether I think it's good. I pointed out to you all the mistakes on how I would reword it, and you're saying to me, my problem is I'm a perfectionist. It's stuck, hasn't it? The reason it's coming out of my mouth right now is that stuck, because I just thought, but if I'm a sub-editor or an editor or whatever, that's what you're meant to be. It's meant to be right.
Yeah.
Because, like, I personally, if I read something and see loads of mistakes in it. And I'm like, this is shit.
Yeah.
And that's always my point to, you know, to that particular person. I said, but if you put that out like that, just because you want to go to the printers now, because you want to hit a deadline, because you want to say to your boss, yeah, it's done and we've ticked the box. I said, when people read it and there's mistakes in it, well, it'll reflect badly on you. It'll reflect badly on the organisation. And now, because I'm involved in the process, it'll reflect badly on me as well. So I said, I don't know why you'd want it to go out and less than frigging perfect. You know what I mean?
But why are you asking me in the first place? That's like, what are you asking me for? What did you want to happen? And I've seen that loads. Like, it's like, I feel I'm meant to ask for feedback here, but I actually don't want it. I just want you to come back to me and say, go, yeah, it was sound. You're like, no, I'm not. That's not my job. Like, my job is to pick up the fucking mistakes.
Yeah. I'll add it the other way around as well, where it's like, you know, like I did something like really out my comfort zone once. It was like this huge communications plan for something really big, do you know what I mean? And it was like a bit like, wow, you know, surprised I'm being put on this almost. Like it was sort of, you know, way above what I'd normally been involved in. So I, you know, did what I thought was a good job on it. And took it to like the boss and said, well, what do you think of that? And they had a read through and they said, it's good, yeah, it's good. It's just not quite right. It's just not quite there. So all right, yeah, no worries. What is it that, you know, you think it's lacking? It's just not quite there. Okay, in what way? And they couldn't say. And I was like, and like I ended up getting a bit of a column because I was like, I can't do anything with that. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to be specific about what it is. Is there something you want more of? Do you want more evidence? Do you want more people? You know, what is, just have another look at it. All right, yeah.
I hate that. I hate that.
So do I.
Like, fuck.
In what way?
You say, yeah. It's like I've got. Is it a little tip for people in negotiations? Like, it's like, have you ever done this? Like, make an offer for something, and someone could they come back and go to you, no, and you go, okay, how much do you want? And they go, just make another offer. And I go, no, that's bullshit. I'm not negotiating against myself. You just tell me how much you want, and then we'll go from there. I'll tell you whether, because there's a number. Like, let's say I'm offering to like buy a house, and I've offered you 100 grand, and you said no, and you say to me, just come back to me with another offer. There's a number that I can get to where you'll say yes. So just tell me that number now. And that's funny. Like over the years, sometimes I get cob on, and then sometimes I just go. They'd be like, if someone was like, no, I just go, okay, 110,000, and they go, no. I go 120,000, no. 130,000, no. 140,000, no. 150,000. Like, there we go. You could have just fucking said that, couldn't you? It saved us loads of fucking time.
Mad. I was thinking, yeah, I've got a bit of a sort of deep tangent for you. So those scenarios some of those scenarios that I've told you about workplaces I've been in and my little clashes with people over things or whatever. Like we've talked before, haven't we, that even though we're in our 40s and whatever, you know, the little us is still fucking kicking around, and like, you know, I'm still absolutely. I mean, you know, I'm fucking like a kid. What did I send you the other week? That I was absolutely, oh, it was ChatGPT where I got it to define what short meant.
Yeah.
Now,
it is funny seeing AI fucking deal with that. I love thinking about it. You know what I'm like? I love thinking about like behind the scenes where they're chatting to each other. And they're like, you know, now what's he asking you to do this time?
Yeah.
He's asking you what a fucking shart is. I had to fucking explain to him. It's a fucking combination of a shit and a fart. And the circumstances in which it might happen. And his fucking AI mates are like, fucking hell. It ties into this conversation. You're like the boss that the AI's like, fucking hell. What?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah. ChatGPT's mates are going, you should fucking leave that, you know. Don't work for him anymore. He's a fucking weirdo.
What I was circling back to on that was so clearly like that's like toilet humor I have always absolutely buzzed off, and I don't think there'll be a day where I won't. And you know, so like used to religiously buy Viz because it was my type of humor, you know what I mean? And like I'll still occasionally buy it, I just don't think it's as good these days. But no, the point I was going to make was that thing where I think no matter what the scenario, someone's, crossing a line or taking the piss, and I'll tell them or do something about it. I was like that as a kid. Like that's not a thing that's not a thing that's arrived in adulthood. I was like that as a kid. So like I can remember and fuck it, I'll tell this story. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I've told enough people in my personal life anyway. So there was a our school, I'll set the scenario. Our school was mad. It's gone now. It's been knocked down. But when I was growing up, Knowsley, where Highton is, was always consistently bottom of every educational league. And then our school was bottom for Knowsley. And my half fella got involved with like the PTA and all that, much to my embarrassment. And but he ended up being mates with some of the teachers, like, and he pretty much said, like, some of them said, like, there's you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear type of thing. Like, some of the people coming through the door, they just don't want to know, and neither do the parents. So what do you want us to do type of thing?
Yeah.
And I did want to know, like, I was a bit of a knob for the first couple of years, but then I knuckled down and did all right, did enough, got me GCSEs, do you know what I mean? Went on, did A-levels, blah, 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 blah. But some of the teachers, I felt, treated you in a certain way, no matter what, do you know what I mean? So like, they were like, this is a bit of a rough school, yous are all rough asses, and I'm going to fucking treat you that way, do you know what I mean? And like, there was some science teacher where we were all dick. He was late for the lesson, and we were all dicking about in the lesson because he was late, do you know what I mean? And he came through the door, and like various mad things had happened just before he'd walked through the door. Like a fire extinguisher had been set off, someone had climbed out the window onto the roof, whatever, like all wild stuff. And I was just generally dicking around. I hadn't done any of the more extreme things. I think he just saw me as he walked through the door, and I wasn't at my seat, and I didn't have my books out, and whatever. And his reaction to that was to twist my arm up my back in front of everyone. I know, and it fucking hurt as well.
How old were
you? I reckon like 13, 14, something like that. And so I said to him, so he, and he's he's kicking off, and he's kicking off at the class, and he's kicking off at me. He's going on, and he's still got my fucking arm up my back, and I'm going to him, let go of me now, let go. And he's like waffling on, sort of hardly paying attention to me. And I went, let go now. And he looked at me, and I went, let go. And he went, what? I went, let go of my arm, you're hurting me. So I'd said that about 5 times. So I hit him. I just gave him a bit of a bit of a dig in the stomach, like winded him. And he let go. And he the classic when you've got the solar plexus, if you like, where they're like,
yeah.
He was doing all that, and he just like sat down with his brew and everything, got the books out, just delivered the lesson, and never said fuck all about it.
Really? Nothing got said?
No. Never got referred anywhere, never got reported, never got detention. He never said anything about it. It just got left. And I've always took that to mean, well, you fucking knew you were out of order.
100%, yeah.
But you know what
I think something that's interesting about stories like that is, when you're a kid, he's a grown-up and he's an adult. But how old do you reckon he was?
I reckon like in his 50s.
How was he? He was a little bit older.
Yeah.
But even that, like, we're not far away from being in our 50s now,
I know, yeah.
Like, that's nearly us. And
yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I'm interested in teaching. I've looked at teaching. Yeah. I've had a little go of it. But I know that there's like, it would have to be a certain, like, I think like a college or a university or whatever, like, sort of, if you're like, where they want to be there, fine. And like I did some work, you know, in the year this year. I did some work with like some, you know, younger kids and all that, and they were sound. That was all right. One or two of them were acting up, but you had like a teaching assistant and stuff in the room. The way the setup was, so like they dealt with the misbehavior. I was just there to, you know, encourage them to write and things like that. But I know I mean, like some of my mates have been or are teachers, and like the path, I may be wrong about this, but what seems to be the path from what I've seen is you qualify, and the most likely places you are to get a job when you first qualify are the fucking rough schools, basically. You know what I mean? Because surprise, surprise, like the better teachers don't want to work in them. You know, they go and work in the nice one. And so I've heard some like mad stories, and I even think about, you know, stuff that went on at our school, and I just think that is not for me. No way could I be standing in a room with like a teenage lad like fronting me and stuff and calling me all kinds. You know what I mean? Nah, not for me. Not my skill set.
Yeah, but that's the bit. That's what I mean. Like that's the bit when you're a kid, you don't think of, do you? Like they're a human. Like they've got a boiling point as well, and they've got shit going on in their lives. And like that fella, the fact he didn't do anything about it, he could have had all kinds going on behind the scenes. And he's in that class, he's boiled over. And as he's holding your hand and you've dug him, you might have like just woke him up, and he's gone, little voice in his head gone, what the fuck are you doing there, lad? Sit down and hope that lad doesn't fucking mention this to anyone.
Yeah. And look, there was loads of stuff like that in our school. It was mad. I can remember once a lad, you know, the teacher said to this lad, like, you know, get out my lesson, like, you know, I've had enough of you, like, get out. And he went, all right, yeah. And like our school had like was it 2 floors? Yeah, 2 floors, I think. And he jumped out the window.
Fucking hell.
And then he was just like down there going like, well, you said get out. Which was hilarious for us. But like, you know, if you're a teacher, like I can remember GCSE maths, I think it was, the exam went in, and a lad who was in the hall to take the exam walked in, put his feet on the desk, like where the exam paper was, and, you know, like sat back in his chair, sparked the bifter up in the exam.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
Yeah, well, I think this is a big thing about it, and it's funny, like the wide thing of work. I've thought this, I used to think this loads about lawyers, right? So you have like words like teacher, lawyer, even footballer. But actually, depending on what you're doing inside that industry, it's a completely different fucking job. So like I started saying after a while, I'm a corporate lawyer, because as soon I realized I've got this story once. I used to do when I went to Liverpool Uni, and they used to do this thing called the Smithdown 10, which was the Smithdown Road in South Liverpool. And you do a pub crawl, and you go to 10 pubs, and you have a bevy in each pub, and you do it quick. That's the idea. And I remember in the very first pub, top end of Smithdown Road, quite rough, and a fella comes up to me, he had like mad, I always remember him, he had like mad, tight knit curly hair, so like a perm on his head, red, like what, just one of them fellas you look at straight away, you're like, you're mad. And he came up to me at the bar, I'm at the bar with my mates, and I'm only 18, I looked dead young when I was 18. Obviously you think you're dead old, don't you, because I'm in uni and all that, in the pub having a bevy, but looked like a fucking baby. And this grown man comes up to me and goes, what are you doing here? I'm like, we're students, we're doing a pub crawl. What type of student? And it's a law student. And straight away, it was my first experience of this, and it was just set me up for life. This happens all the time. He went, oh, you'd be able to help me with something. And I was like, oh, what is that? He went, right, so me missus, right, she's kicked me out. And anyway, she's got a dog, and I kicked the dog in the head. And I was like, I'm standing there as an 18-year-old thinking, this isn't the type of law I'm going to fucking do. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But people always have this assumption so I started saying to people, I'm a corporate lawyer, because straight away people go, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, it's stuff you've never thought of in your life. Like, you don't even know the lawyers exist for doing this stuff, like contracts around business deals. Because when you say law to someone, we think about the stuff we see on telly, which is, you know, criminal. And the other one people started to see all the time, which came during my like legal career, was personal injury lawyers. And personal injury lawyers, it used to be, when you said a lawyer to someone, it used to be, quite well respected. And people like, oh, a lawyer. But then once personal injury lawyers came out, and it was like ambulance chasing and all that, then people started going, oh, you're one of them ambulance chasers. You're like, no, I'm not. But I used to think that, like, I'd meet a lad who was an ambulance chaser, and he'd be going to people, I'm a lawyer. And I'd go, we shouldn't be able to use this. There should be different names for what we do, because what you do and what I do are so fucking different. And it's the same with teaching, isn't it? Teaching kids
100%.
in like an inner city school where it's rough and it's the parents don't give a shit. That is a completely different job to teaching kids in a private school in a nice area where they've been, raised by people who were always already well educated. They've been, by the time they come to school, they can read and write. They're polite. They're well behaved. One of my mates who does the Ampere Rap, Jacko, he's a teacher and teaches in Kirby.
Yeah.
And he's always said that. Like,
he got a new job, hasn't he?
I haven't seen him for ages. Yeah, I think. Well, he was looking for a job last time I saw him. But
popped up in LinkedIn. I'll tell you.
Yeah, okay. We'll do that off here. But I remember he used to say the same thing to me, like Joe Ofsted, who, for people outside the UK, they're like the people who inspect teachers and schools. Yeah. He said Ofsted would come in and he'd have that same conversation you mentioned earlier. He'd be going to them, but what do you expect of us? Like, we're honestly, like, for half the kids in this class, it's a win if we get them into the class in a uniform and they've had some breakfast. Like, that's a win for us, because they're from a fucking crazy family where their parents are alcoholics or drug addicts. And it's not, you can't judge us on the same basis that you're judging St. Mary's private school in Crosby. Like, that's not fair. I'm like a counsellor before I'm a fucking teacher. And I think that's the same. I mean, on a lighter note, we've said that all footy over the years, and we've seen, I remember one of my favourites ever podcasts the Rap did was it interviewed a few ex-Liverpool players who were now at Marine. This is a few years ago now. And it was dead good, because was that you? I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking it was boss, because they were like, it's just a different thing. Like, it's a different game. Like, we left Liverpool, and that's why it explained to me why, Joe, you'd see a kid at Liverpool who's brilliant leave Liverpool and then just disappear. And they were explaining why he went, because like, you'd leave Liverpool highly rated as a striker, and what you're used to is playing on like a bowling green pitch with these fucking through balls being played here, making clever runs, making little turns, 1-2s with people. And he went, you'd go, like, someone from Division 2 would pick you up, and you'd go in and they'd be like, right, so what we need you to do is we're just going to knock the ball long to you and you hold it up. And they'd be like, that's not what I do, mate. Like, I can't do that. And they'd be like, well, that's what you've got to do here. And they'd be like, well, why don't we just try playing footy and that? And it's like, that's not what. And they said it was like playing a different game. And
well, that's what Dingo said as well. Did a couple of rap shows with him as well. John Coleman, the Accrington Stanley manager, said exactly the same thing. And he'd know, because not only has he took loads of lads on who've been kicked out of academies and stuff, but he played non-league himself and stuff. So and he said exactly the same thing. He said, like, you'll get lads who'll come from the academy, and he said, nice touch and things like that. He said, but no one's asked about that in League Two. Like, you're getting put on your ass by these grok centre halves and stuff. And he said, like, you just need to have some physicality to be able to cope. And he said, loads of them can't, or can't adapt. And it is a different sport. It's like that's one of the reasons I like going watching like non-league, because it's not the Premier League, and no one's saying it is. But it's got its own appeal. Do you know what I mean? And like, it is a bit more raw and it's a bit more rough, and you see heavier tackles going in, and there's more little kickoffs, and
it's old school, isn't it? It's like the footy we were raised with.
Stuff gets shouted out from the crowd, and sometimes the players say things back, and I absolutely love all that. Like, remember John Coleman, funnily enough, telling me that I think he was playing I think it was Hyde United, which is like sort of outskirts of Manchester. And he was playing for like one of the Liverpool non-league sides or thereabouts, and he said like the crowd were giving him shite for being a fat bastard, or all the way through the thing and all this. And he said like it said some things back, so then it's like your scouse fat bastard and whatever. And he said like constant, relentless every time he got the ball, particularly like some lads in a particular corner of the ground, because like it's only normally a few hundred, isn't it? So you'll know that it was them there. And he said I scored the winner. And he said, I fucking just ran right up to that corner, like slid on my knees, like top over me head, like slapping me belly and all that. Like, and I was like, I love that. Do you know what I mean? I love that. I love that absolute needle. But I've done the Billy Connolly thing again, and sort of like we've gone around the houses and said loads of other stuff. What I was going to ask you about, because I know you've done all this stuff and there's the stuff you do for a living now, if you like, and all that. So do you think like you have like traits that are sort of like written through you, like Blackpool Rock, and like that's it? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there ever going to be a time where I don't know, like in those scenarios that we've described, various scenarios, school, work, or whatever, if someone's an absolute bell and crosses my values, if you're like my lines, I'm just gonna go sound.
Yeah, so I don't know whether I'll ever see you do that, but right, so yeah, the answer is yeah, and at the same time, I think there is stuff. It's not just me thinks this, like that's written through us in rock. So, like to give you the technical answer, it goes back to like the psychoanalyst Carl Jung and archetypes, right? We've got these like, and depending on where you look, I talk about multiple personalities because I think it works better like in real life, the type of things we see in real life. But his was like set personality types, like that are all parts of. We've all got all of them. So it's like the things like the hero, the jester, like all these different parts of us, right? And the reality is that like nature or nurture, whatever, you can have debates about that all day long. We have leanings one way. So like, and this is why humans have evolved the way we have to work together. Because I did a course last year, was dead interesting on this, like about relationships and how these dynamics work in a relationship, which is why loads of relationships are fucked because we don't understand this stuff. So this guy talked about like wolves and sheep. Like he boiled it down to 4: wolves, sheep, gorillas, and foxes. And like wolves, as you can imagine, the fucking aggressive ones. Sheep are the fucking lovers and singers. Gorillas are the organized ones, and foxes are like the magicians, the entertainers. And he was like, think about a village. You need them all. You need all of those people.
Yeah.
So like if you start putting it, like if you own a village and someone might attack your village and you put the sheep or the magicians on the gate to protect the village, you're fucked. You need the wolves to stop people coming into your village and fucking killing everyone. So you put the wolves on the gate, and that makes sense. And then inside the village, you have the sheep looking after the kids, and you have the foxes entertaining everyone. You have the gorillas organizing everything. Yeah. And over time, you can like, no matter what you are at your core, you can like evolve to take the edges off, for want of a better word. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can be a wolf. And it was mad when I was doing this stuff because I was like, oh, I'm fucked. I've got bipolar. Like, because even the fella doing the course was like, he was like, what do you think you are? And I was like, I'm a sheep at heart. Like I was a dead, quiet little kid. And he was like, I thought you were a wolf from the way you've described yourself. And I was like, yeah, but that's because I started life as a sheep, but then the world I went into, being a corporate lawyer, I had to fucking turn into a wolf to fucking survive. And that ties into what we were talking about at the start of the show. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what happens psychologically. Your system changes to adapt to survive with what you're doing. But the whole point of that stuff is when you're like a wolf-like character, which is what you are, what you can do is learn how to like dampen that down. So instead of when someone comes up to you, like let's use that same analogy, right? You're standing on the gate of the village with this sword over your shoulder, and someone walks up to the thing and says something to you, and you just chop his head off. And an elder wolf who's learned a bit more, and he was like you when he was younger, comes up to you and goes, mate, you don't need to just chop their head off. Just ask,
Yeah.
just ask what they want.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone who comes is trying to fucking steal our kids. And you're like, yeah, but he might fucking steal our kids, mightn't he? And it's not worth taking the chance. And the older ones, like, I used to be like you when I was your age too. We can just say what you want.
Do you know what?
Figure it out.
That's made me. That's like triggered something there, like a therapy session, isn't it? But it's just reminded me about my dad once. So like, I don't know if I've said on here before, but like, you know, I never saw. My dad wasn't into footy, so we didn't have that sort of common bond point, and he didn't take me to any games or anything like that. He wouldn't even go over the fucking road and watch the non-league side. That was literally, you could see out the window, Knowsley United. I used to have to go to that on me, Todd. And then a sort of like a weird place where we would like bond, if you like, in later on, was I'd go out, and like my dad was like a bit of a night owl, and so am I. And so I'd go out with my mates and all that, bevy, and I'd come back, and my dad would still be up. And so I'd sit there with him, and like, you know, we'd have a bifter and like maybe some, like a little glass of whiskey or whatever, and just talk shite for hours. And like, I loved it though. Do you know what I mean? It was great. It was just like a little little, you know, father son thing. And I always remember, I was telling someone this the other day actually. So it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and someone knocked at the front door. And so, like a bit like when you get a phone call after 9, you know, you're
who's
like,
this?
Who the fuck's this?
Who's phone in my house, isn't it?
And so go to the door. Well, my dad goes to the door, but I quickly follow by me because, you know, like, you're like, 3 o'clock in the morning, what's happening here? And I was like, this lad there, like, you know, fucking big house on, like, you know, zip to the top and all that. And he's like, is Sue there? And like, my dad's just there, like, dead calmly with his bifter, like, just going, leaning against the frame, going like, no, lad, you know, no one called Sue lives here, and, you know, we've lived here for years, so you've got the wrong house there. And he's like, yeah, sorry about that then, mate, you know what I mean, and all that. And I pushed past me dad and went, fuck off, you shit house. You were seeing if anyone was in because you want to fucking bagel the gaff. Fuck off, get out the road, you little knobhead, and all this. And then, and like, he didn't argue back, which, you know, again, I'll take it to mean I was onto something.
Yeah.
But like, when we went back in, like, my dad was just like, didn't need to do that, did you? And I was like, but that's what he was doing now. When he goes, well, I know that, but so what? We're in, and we've played his game, and we've told him Sue's not here, and he's gone. So he didn't need to. And like, when you're just saying, like, you know, just sort of smoothing the edges off, like my dad, you know, I would imagine, I'd say my dad had some similar traits to me, but in that circumstance, he was just like, I'll just calmly smoke me figgy and
yeah.
say,
well, it's funny actually.
No Sims.
Something I've realized over time, like in this world, is like there are people who do like get into it like I do, like heavily therapy and coaching and all that learning stuff, and then there are people at the other end of the spectrum who do nothing. But what I've realized is most people over time, like the edges get rounded off, because there's only so many times through life you can keep doing the thing without your system going, I didn't need to do that. It's actually just causing me grief, and I can just stop. And that's and what your dad will have done,
haven't you?
Exactly.
You've seen it. I think as you get older, you know it. You've seen it, and it's just like, you know, like now, like, you know, I couldn't be arsed having a fight. I've got to be honest with you. Like, I think people think I'm a kick-off, but I'd rather just get off. I can't be bothered.
Oh, I'm the same. I'm the same. Like, have you ever had the proper fight, like being punched in the face?
Yeah.
Well, I've said this to people over time, like, because I have when I was younger. Yeah, me too. And I remember getting to the point where you're like in a confrontation, like it looking like it was going to turn into a fight, and me going, I'm not fighting you. And then being like, what? I'm like, best case scenario if we have a fight is I hit you and you don't hit me back. But the chances are even if I win, I'm going to hit you a few times and you're going to hit me a few times. And it
And
fucking
it'll hurt.
hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts getting
And
punched in the face. It does. And
it
I
hurts.
got
And
volleyed in the face once outside a party, and I had like the shape of someone's foot in on my face. You could see the laces across my nose. And it was dead funny at the time, because I'll tell you a little story from my dad, which is the opposite of yours in a minute. But my granddad was fought in the war and all that, and like he was my equivalent of your dad in that story. Thinking he like me mum and me grandma and all kicking off, what's going on and all that. And my granddad just waited till everyone had because I was like playing with one of my teeth, because it felt like it might be loose where I've been volleyed, and he just waited till like everyone else had left the room, and just went to me, son, you just need to know if any of your teeth are loose after a fight, don't play with them. You just need to let them settle back in. I remember laughing to myself. I must have been about 16 and thinking, you've been in loads of fucking fights, haven't you?
Yeah.
When you were younger.
I got it with a knuckle duster once. Or a lad wearing one. Not just a knuckle duster on its own. Yeah.
Heavy that.
I know. It was knocked me out and then it banged my head on the pavement.
That explains a lot.
I know, yeah. I left. That was an open goal for you there. Yeah, I've got like a scar on the back of my head from where he hit the pavement, like.
But I'll tell it just to lighten it up. This has got nothing to do with this has got nothing to do with what we're talking about, other than it's a dad story, and it's the opposite of what you were saying. And just to show that not everyone does like mellow out as they get older. My dad was the opposite of this it was like I was the elder. Do you know what I mean? Going like, I don't know why you're getting so stressed out about this. Like I could give you 1,000 examples, but this isn't like the year he passed away last year, but this isn't in the year before he passed away. Like he's waiting for like phone calls from hospital and stuff because he had cancer. We're driving somewhere and I'm in the back of their car, and he had his phone hooked up to the car, and my mum's in the front. We're going for a family meal or something like that, and the phone goes, and it's the hospital with an appointment, and he goes, hello, and exactly like the similar theme is how your characters change. He does the whole like, oh hello, yes,
phone voice,
Eric Cope here, yes. Oh, thank you. And it's the hospital, and they're like, yeah, so we're just phoning to like give you an appointment for such a thing. And he's like, oh, thanks very much. Let me just make a note of that. Yeah, great. Okay, I'll see you then. And then as he puts the phone down, there's a scene in Wolf of Wall Street that is like this. He's like, I can't believe that. I can't believe they phoned me on my mobile phone. And I was like, what do you mean? He went, I told them they've got to phone me on the house phone, because if they phone me on the mobile phone, I'll usually miss it. I'll be in the house and they'll phone. If they phone me on the house phone, they'll get me on the house phone, but not on the mobile. And I'm sitting in the back of the car going, this is like being in a fucking like La La Land. I went, but they phoned you on your mobile and you got it because you were in your car. Like they literally got you because you're on your mobile. If they'd have phoned the house, you're not in. And so you'd have missed the call. And he went, yeah, but that's not the point. The point is I told them to phone me on the house phone. I was like, this is wild. Why are you getting upset about them ignoring you? But them actually getting hold of you and giving you the appointment that you needed. And he couldn't see it. He was just furious that they hadn't done what he'd said. And I was like, that's mental.
The red mist was down. Like, love it. Well, we actually had an article to talk to you, but we haven't got time. We've done the hour there, I think, haven't we? But I actually sent Kobe an article that I found online, how to deal with every type of dickhead in the workplace. And then it had them all listed and different types. Did you notice the picture on that article at all?
No, go on.
I just have a look when you're there, when you get a mo. Like here, the picture on it is literally like loads of people sitting around at like computers and desks and that with actual bell ends of the head. Which I really love. The whole article is really, really well written. It's just written in like a dead conversational way, but there's all these different types of people. It's from a book, which I might just read because it just sounds interesting. Not that I want to like It's called The Schmuck in My Office: How to Deal Effectively with Difficult People at Work. But it's an article based on that basically. But I don't know what time, mate. But if people would like us to return to the topic of work and maybe go through that article, do let us know. Sorry, just dropped my phone there. Also, do let us know just sort of like what topics of conversation you are enjoying and maybe you'd like us to return to, because we've done all kinds, haven't we, on here now? Obviously, we've done news, sport, we've done mental health, now we've done a work-based conversation. If there are any bits and bobs you want to hear us talk about, let us know. We are doing, or we will have done by the time this is out. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? We do these producer shows as well. If you're on the top tier of the subscription, all that is, just to explain quickly, is we just do a Zoom with subscribers who make themselves available, and we literally discuss that type of stuff. We'll say, like, you know, what you like, what don't you like, what you want more of, what you want less of. But you know, that's open to everyone. If you want, if there's something you've liked in particular, if there's something you'd like us to return to, let us know. I seen someone saying the other day, it was, you know, a nice bit of feedback to finish on. I always shout out the bell ends, don't I? But we did get something nice the other day that I spotted, where it just basically said, like, it feels like we could just give you any topic whatsoever and used to it waffle away and it'd be in some way entertaining. So I like that, because nice, you know, like, that's what we're doing essentially, isn't it? Yeah. With these shows. So hopefully you do enjoy them. Hopefully you do like them. Hopefully you'll keep on subscribing, and hopefully you will tell other people. But that's been yet another subscriber show. Hope you enjoyed it. And whatever you're doing today, this weekend, this week, enjoy yourselves.